Hello, everyone. Welcome to this edition of Podcast with the Experts. Today, I'm extremely pleased and glad to join Ron Leeman of the Highway of Change, joining us from Thailand. He's an organizational change management specialist, over 4 decades of experience, and leads the Institute of Change and Transformational Professionals Asia. So I'm so happy to have you, Ron. Thank you for joining us today. How are you doing today?
I'm fine. Thank you for having me. It's definitely a pleasure.
Excellent, Ron. Ron, for viewers who are listening to this podcast, can you give us, you've been in a business change for a long period of time.
Can you tell? Yeah, I have. Yes, absolutely.
And I think from that particular perspective, we need to get your potted history of your change career till date so that we'll know exactly, we'll get enlightened by the movement of change.
Yeah, sure. I mean, what I'll do, just bear with me. I'll just bring up a few slides as well, just to back up what I'm going to say. Yes, I have been in the game of change, or the business of change, for a long time. I think it started way back in 1974 when I worked for the UK Ministry of Defence, and I started working as on a thing called what they called work study, which is part method study and part work measurement, which was basically looking at the way people worked, measuring how long it took them, changing the way they worked, and looking at what efficiency they made in terms of the time it took to work. So essentially, it was change management. I spent many years with the MOD, and one of the other things while I was with them was my first introduction to technology change. I worked for a group called the Small Systems Group, which was basically implementing small systems into military units worldwide. And it was to replace paper-based systems. You know, we're doing this via this and that. So we implemented small network systems. So that was way back in, long time ago. And very quickly, I moved from there to TaUB National, which was a building society, which became a bank called TaUB. I spent many years there, about 8 years, working within their various internal departments as a internal business consultant, very much around process work and change work. I left TaUB in 2011, sorry, 2011, no, that's wrong, 1996, to become an independent consultant. And I worked on the contract market in the UK and across the globe for about 14 years in various industry sectors, you know, various different roles, etc. So again, a long time. And then just to give you an idea of the sort of areas I worked in: oil and gas, advertising, local government, insurance, engineering, the different technologies I work with, LAN, WAN, data centers, knowledge management, imaging, video conference, you name it, I've worked with it. It's quite an in-depth experience. So I spent, as I said, 14 years on the contract market. Then in 2011, I made a conscious decision to move here to Southeast Asia and to continue my work on the contract market. I've worked in Indonesia, Singapore, and Thailand. But then you mentioned the ICTPA, the Institute of Change and Transformation Professional Asias. About 2.5 years ago, I saw a gap in the market where there was no representation of change and transformation professionals here in Asia. So I am on a journey with 14 other country representatives at the moment on trying to get this established. It's taken a while because of dealing with many countries, etc., and different cultures and different regulations and stuff like that. But we're nearly there. We're nearly there. So effectively, yes. Just finally, one last thing. In 2012, I was presented with a Change Leader of Tomorrow award by the World HRD Congress. I think they operate out of Mumbai. And that was in recognition of my remarkable progress in initiating changes enough for others in the same industry to follow my example.
Excellent. I think
that's about it in a nutshell.
Excellent, Ron. I think it's been heartening to see your pioneering effort, not just for the organization's change management area, but also giving back to the community. Because from all my conversations with you, I've seen that the whole role that you've taken as part of ICTPA is to give back to the community and create that awareness and model. So it's pretty inspiring, and thanks for doing what you're doing.
Sorry, as I said, there's a gap in the market, and you know, just to give you an idea of the sort of following we have, we've got 900 people now following the LinkedIn company page. We've got over 1,200 people following the ICTPA group, and as I said, we've got 14 country representatives already in place. So, and we hope to incorporate as a non-for-profit entity in Singapore in the next few months.
Yeah, I'm pretty focused on the Southeast Asia region, because that's my region that I interact with it. So I'm happy that we have someone on the ground to help us navigate through this maze. Now, you have tried, I mean, if you look at organizational change management models, right? I mean, they have been existed for quite a number of years, and they have their own models, what they call as, a cookie cutter model, or an option where they say that this is all been done for so long. So, but what I found interesting in our conversations with you, that you have your own practical framework approach for change. So can you tell us, a bit about that, and what do you think, and why do you think that is different from the other models that we see today in the industry?
There are, at last count, well over 50 different change models. Going way back to 1940, from Lewin's freeze, change, refreeze, and then you've got the ProSize, the Kotters of this world, etc. And people still use them, but they're all similar in a way, because I've kind of done a lot of research on them. They're all similar in a way, but they all have their idiosyncrasies. They all have their little bit different. Some are at a holistic level, some are more at a practical level. And, they're great, but you have to be careful when you use them. And going back to my model, what I call the practical framework for approach to change, is I started developing this in 1996 when I first went onto the contract market in the UK. And it is based absolutely 100% on practical approaches to various different activities. Yeah. Based on my own experience, based on knowing what went well and what didn't go so well. And basically, the other thing is it continues to be updated on a regular basis. As an example, I've recently added a section about change management in the brain, neuroscience, how the brain works. I'm about to add a section on culture change, which is a big area. So it continuously gets updated. But what it is it's very practical, and very, very, very briefly, the way it works is there are what I call 3 foundations, which are sponsorship and leadership, stakeholder engagement, and communication engagement. These are the 3 elements of OCM, organizational change management, that really, really need to be put in place before anything else is done. Because what you have to do is you have to build a solid foundation for your change initiative. And if you don't have a solid foundation, well, you know what happens. Solid foundations wash away and things don't happen. Once those foundations are in place, other parts of the model are process change, followed by organizational change, followed by training management, followed by business readiness and adoption, business benefits management, and then continuous improvement. Those are what I call the building blocks. But there is a lot of stuff that sits underneath those fairly high level building blocks. And one of the key things in any change initiative is actually what I call the holy grail of organizational change management, is making sure the business is ready for go live, whatever the go live may be. And after go live, whether the stakeholders are actually using and adopting whatever the implementation is. Because 1, if you don't have a business that's ready, there's going to be problems. 2, if stakeholders don't adopt and use whatever you delivered, well, there's no point in you actually doing the project in the first place, is there? So that's kind of a really high level view of my practical framework for change. the actual framework has been downloaded more than 10,000 times from a website that there's a free primer on a website. It's now been downloaded over 10,000 times. So it's kind of getting traction. Yeah. And, and again, it's updated on a regular basis. It's very practical. And that's, I think, what makes it different.
Excellent. So a couple of questions on what organizations are doing today when it comes to OCM. There's a lot of confusions around change management towards an organizational change management. Particularly, everybody today talks about digital transformation, right? Now, a lot of times about digital transformation is not about technology or processes. It's about the mindset change or the culture change.
Yeah.
Your experience of working through a lot of companies, what do you think has been the important lessons learned to organizations to succeed in an organizational change transformation?
Yeah, the success factor is actually, you mentioned changing mindsets, which eventually change behaviors. I think this is the core of any OCM activity. Yeah, it's dealing with the people, the stakeholders, those people that are impacted by the change, making sure they are fully aware of what is going on, because without awareness, they don't understand, they don't know what's going on. If they don't know what's going on, that creates resistance. Yeah, it's a natural cycle. Yeah, so the more information you give them, the more aware they become, and hopefully the more supportive they become. And just going back to my framework approach for change, if you measure business readiness, yeah, you can actually, over a 6-month period on a cyclical basis or once a month, you can actually see, based on the output, where people are becoming more aware. So they are becoming more aware of what's going on, yeah, in terms of various areas that you're measuring. And then at the end, towards go live, they come to a situation where they are ready. So you can measure that awareness. And it's important because, as I said, the more information people have, the more their mindsets work, the more their behaviors change, etc. And the other thing is about involvement of individuals in any change initiative, is to try and get them involved as much as possible, whether that's through active involvement, so becoming part of the team as a change agent, as an example, or whether it's inactive involvement. And what I mean by that is back to creating awareness, the communication issues and stuff like that. So that, I believe, is the core for having a successful initiative: changing mindsets and behaviors, getting people on board, getting business readiness right, and then, as I mentioned before, adoption and usage.
Excellent. So in terms of whatever you've done it across different diversified industries, across countries. Do you see a pattern on organizational change that resonates across the world, or do you think there is a specific inclination towards change in the Western part of the world to, let's say, I'm quite keen to know about what is happening in the South.
Yeah. Change is big business, especially at the moment nowadays with the pandemic, because a whole host of stuff is changing in terms of, the way the workplace is designed, people working from home, etc., etc. But effectively, there is a standard way of people approaching organisation change. And coming back to the ICTPA, one of the things I've found here in Asia is that the way change is practiced is very, very much influenced by country culture. Yeah. So, you have the Association of Change Management Professionals in the US, you have the Change Management Institute in Australia, who both do a very good job for their members. But as I said, there's a gap, and there's the culture thing. I did a recent culture survey, which I published at the beginning of this year, where it was called the cultural dynamics that impact change and transformation in Asia. And the three main issues that came, the one main issue that came out, the biggest impact was one of relationships. Yeah. So you need to develop fairly strong relationships before anybody gets involved with you as an individual, as a change manager or the change management team. Yeah. And relationships is not such an important issue. in the America or Australia or in the West. Yeah. The other two things were hierarchy, which is still quite a big deal here in Asia. Yeah, you know, you have to go through the hierarchical process to an extent. Yeah, and the other one is building consensus, which kind of links to the relationships one. You build a relationship and you build a consensus, but there is an issue of consensus in terms of, well, everybody has to get on board. You can't do something with only, say, 50% agreement. You know, everybody has to agree to this and then you do it. So there are some fundamental differences, hence the ICTPA.
Excellent. So coming back to, you have this Fundamentals of Organizational Change Management course.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about this course and why it is a kind of a learning experience for people?
Hopefully, again, the course has been developed based on my practical framework approach to change. Okay, I'll say that straight away. And I kind of like to position it. Well, I've been delivering it now for the last 2 years. Yeah, and I've had various delegates from the UK, from Pakistan, from Malaysia, from Singapore. I've got a couple signing up next month from Trinidad and Tobago, as an example. So it's starting to get noticed. And I like to think I deliver a different kind of learning experience. And what do I mean by that? I used to call my course the Fundamentals of Change Management. I now call it the Fun of Change. Because what I found is that when I deliver to delegates, we actually, I try and make it a very light-hearted approach to learning. Yeah. And we have a laugh. I tell jokes, you know, and stuff like that. I because of my 4 decades worth of experience, as you mentioned, I've got so many stories to tell, so many anecdotes and so many examples of where things have gone right, where things have gone wrong. And I use that. I can practically, for everything I train on, I can practically tell a story related to something I've done before, yeah? Which is, it helps the learning sink in. Yeah, it's conversational. I don't like to deliver, you know, this is what you do, this is how you do it, etc. We talk about it. You know, we have a discussion about it. So it's very conversational. I don't necessarily keep to structure. So we can be talking about one thing one moment, then someone asks a question, it goes, ooh, okay, we'll talk about that now. It doesn't matter. And I try to make it very interactive, and although it's delivered online, I try and make it non-online, if that makes sense. And let me quote one delegate's response to the training from Malaysia. She said, "Though it is online, I feel like it's face-to-face training, and Ron is the best trainer and teacher I have ever met." You know, and that's what I try to do. You know, it's hopefully that comes across with what I'm doing now, but it's very personal. I try and make it personal, and people become friends. Yeah, they become friends online, virtually, obviously, but they do become friends. So yeah, it's different.
Yep. So I think the final question, I think, is, and thanks for joining for us in terms of what you said. And if you go to that next slide, because that is a good backdrop of the slide for the chat. Sorry, on the one. We're thrilled to have you present at the join us with TaUB Solutions and present this OCM course, which is a fun course. Fun of Change on 26th and 27th of September. So can you tell me what would be some of the takeaways, or who are the people who have to attend such course for the 26th and 27th, so that we can...
It varies. It absolutely varies, to be honest. I mean, a project manager, as an example, yeah, project manager, very focused on delivery to time, cost and quality, not necessarily change management mindset. So if project managers want to join it, fine. I will give them the fundamentals of organizational change, which will help them in their project. Anyone wanting to get into change, yeah. But it's arguable that everybody is involved in change already in some way, shape or form. Yeah. However, this will give them a little bit more structure on how get into. Anyone that's a change manager already and has kind of fallen into the subject and hasn't really had any formal training, again, for them, some of the people I've changed have been technical people, technical analysts, business analysts and stuff, who want to have that additional capability, So it varies, it really does. Anyone who is involved in change in any way, shape or form will benefit from my Fundamentals of Change Management course.
I think it comes timely, Ron, because of this pandemic situation. Everybody is trying to upskill, and there's a lot of flux within the organization when it comes to change, right? Instead of being a victim of change, how do you actually prepare yourself for change? And as you said, the business readiness to change, I think there has to be a personal readiness to change. People think and act accordingly, and then see how we can enable change, as well as become change agents, because sometimes you can drive change, and it might be a blessing in disguise.
Absolutely.
Right? So thank you so much, Ron, for joining us today. I'm sure that our viewers would have had some good takeaways from this organizational change management specialist. I'm looking forward to hosting the OCM, the Fun of Change, on 26th and 27th for Southeast Asia folks. I mean, the Asia folks will get benefited, and I look forward to staying in touch. Thank you so much again.
No, thank you very much, Suresh. My pleasure. All right.